Donald Trump will now make his major announcement on the government shutdown at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Axios reports that he's going to float a compromise, which still includes $5.7 billion in funding for his border wall in exchange for extending the legal status of DACA and TPS recipients. Karine Jean-Pierre, Jason Johnson, Fernand Amandi are back with me. Fernand, you're at a disadvantage. You're not with us here, so let me get your reaction to that.
Sure.
The reporting is that Trump will float $5.7 billion he still wants for his border wall in exchange for DACA and TPS. Good offer. Democrats should consider. What do you think?
You know, Joy, call me old-fashioned, but I'm just not really keen on the idea of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, who is third in line to the presidency, by the way, continuing to negotiate in good faith for the reopening of our government when it's talking about a president who is currently being investigated by the FBI for possibly being a hostile foreign agent of a hostile foreign government. That being said, it's interesting that now the president is introducing DACA. I'll give Speaker Pelosi what I think is some free advice. I think they should take the deal with one caveat. Add to the mix that in exchange for the $5 billion for the wall and the extension of DACA protections, that the president release his tax returns immediately. Something that he promised to do, by the way, during the campaign. We're now 2 years into the administration. I think it's time for Leader Pelosi to continue to play hardball. She clearly has the upper hand. She clearly has the negotiating advantage. Because from my perspective, Joy, I go back to the comment that Benjamin Wittes made a week ago, very astute, when he pointed out in reaction to the New York Times story that he's starting to believe that the obstruction of justice is the collusion. If you look at this from the frame that says Donald Trump is a hostile foreign Russian agent, which I believe he is, and which Congressman Eric Swalwell, who sits on the Intelligence Committee, confessed last night he also believes is, I believe that the shutdown is the policy accomplishment by Donald Trump. He has literally shut down the United States government for a historic length of time. Who else besides Vladimir Putin would want exactly that? So that's my reaction to this news about the negotiation.
And, you know, I have to say that, you know, just from the standpoint of the United States Constitution, right, the co-equal branch of government, the House and Senate, they have the independent power to reopen. They fund the government.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. The executive power administers the executive branch. The legislative power, the Article I power, funds the legislative branch. So technically a government shutdown is the funding running out and there needing to be bills passed and signed into law by the president that reopen the funding.
Yeah.
The challenge here is that what Donald Trump is trying to establish is that he may shut down the government, put people in existential peril of their homes, their jobs, their food. Food stamps are going to run out in March, and that he can hold an entire nation hostage in order to force the Article I power to pass laws.
Yeah.
This does not feel like a sustainable, to Fernand's point, form of government, and it certainly doesn't sound like a democracy.
Right. He's holding the nation hostage for his bigoted, racist border wall, which we know is a failed policy. And this is why Democrats can't give in. They cannot give in to this, because if you give in to Donald Trump, he will do it again.
Debt ceiling in March.
Debt ceiling is coming. It's coming, like you said. And so we cannot. It is, look, we've been here before where Democrats, which I did not agree with them a year ago, presented DACA and gave him $25 billion, right? And the moment that, I think this was actually a little bit earlier than that, that Dick Durbin in that meeting, that secret meeting with the Republicans that they had, and he mentioned TPS. What did he say? African nations, you know, black and brown countries, those are S-hole countries. And he did not want to go there.
Yeah.
He blew it up. That was the first time he blew it up. And then they gave him the $25 billion for DACA. And then what his folks said, it was amnesty.
He could have built a wall with that.
He could have actually built a wall with it. It's not going to happen. And his folks will not let him do this.
And here's the other challenge that I'll just throw to you as somebody who covers politics, Jason Johnson. The Congress of the United States has a fiduciary duty to the taxpayers, whose money it is.
Yes.
It isn't just monopoly money that you can just say, just give him $5 billion, and then he'll behave himself, right?
Yes.
That's not what the money is for. The taxpayers pay it. It's the duty of the Congress to spend it wisely. a wall is not going to cost $5.7 billion.
No.
It's actually not feasible to build a wall across the southern border.
No.
A lot of that is water.
Right.
Yes.
You can't build a wall in water. I mean, I guess you could.
And domain.
And domain.
Yeah.
Right, lawsuits over eminent
Massive
domain.
lawsuits.
Let's say it's going to cost $100 billion. How does Donald Trump get the next $5 billion?
Exactly. See, that's the problem here. It's indicative of how foolishly he runs the government, the complicity of Mitch McConnell, that we've got this Wayne Brady let's make a deal thing at 3, where he's going to like, door number 1, I've got this, door number 2, what are you going to work for? It doesn't work. It is not a sustainable policy. The wall is symbolic, right, because everybody knows it's not practical. The wall is just a sort of monument to white supremacy that he wants to make. Nancy Pelosi has no reason to negotiate, but what I think is the most important thing for people to remember long term is the President of the United States isn't a strategic thinker. He will use this plan, he will use another plan, he will use whatever it is he can to get whatever he wants whenever he wants to get it. And if it doesn't make sense or if it breaks the government in the process, he's just going to keep going. So, and the interesting thing is, Democrats are just as dug in on this issue as Republicans are. Nancy Pelosi's popularity has gone up since this happened. She is more popular than Donald Trump. She is more popular than Brian Kemp in Georgia. Right. She is more popular in a lot of different places because she has stood her ground. So there's absolutely no reason for her to flex or blink on him at this particular point. And he doesn't seem to figure that out.
And she's also not being investigated in a counterintelligence inquiry as to whether she's working in the interests of a foreign power. Just saying. Just I want to pause this for a moment because Mariana Atencio, our own Mariana, caught up with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of the Women's March in New York City. I want to let you throw to what you asked her and her answer, Mariana.
So, Joy, we found out what that commotion was. It was freshman Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, who I was told at some point was actually looking at the camera. She's probably a fan of AM Joy. And I asked her what it meant to see so many women out here, women who say that, again, seeing her walk the halls of Congress, that started here in the streets of New York. This is what Ocasio-Cortez had to say. What does it feel like to be out here today?
I mean, it's so exciting. It's so thrilling to see so many New Yorkers, so many women across the country that are coming together and showing that we're still taking up presence and we're still going to push for the agenda that we elected so many people to advance.
So many of the women here say they're looking to the newly elected females, members of Congress that are walking the halls of Congress. What do you say to them in these times?
I say it's great and join them. Thank you.
She didn't get a chance to answer that second question for me, Joy, because she started to march. But what I wanted to ask her was that a lot of the women here say they're actually looking to these newly elected female members of Congress as these new leaders, not so much the national leaders of the Women's March. And, you know, it just, again, it's reflective of the power of this movement. And yes, here in the streets of New York, there are 2 competing marches today. Many say it's diluted the effort of the Women's March, but the fact that they're here is reflective of the fact that they're going to keep the momentum going. Joy?
Thank you so much, Mariana Atencio, who's limping today. So thank you doubly for all the hard work that you're doing. Thank you very much. Let me bring back the panel really quickly. I'm going to do a quick lightning round. You know, Fernand, there has been an attempt to delegitimize and also to elevate Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez on the right. They're obsessed with her. But I think one of the things that seems fundamental here is that this new class of Congress is so representative of the diversity of the country and of the future and of America and the American ideal. I wonder what you make of the fact that we are literally having a debate over whether or not we're going to build a 12th century medieval wall across the southern border to keep out people who look like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Mariana Atencio, to keep them out of the country. Why are we having that debate? Why are we allowing that debate?
That's the central question. Why are we engaging and indulging these tantrums over open racism, overt coded policies that speak to white supremacy, at the same time that the Federal Bureau of Investigation is saying that the president is a hostile, potentially a potential hostile foreign agent? I don't believe in giving credence to these negotiations. This notion, Joy, of a 2 to tango, false equivalency on the both sides is nonsense. And that's why I think this is a ridiculous, absurd debate.
Quickly.
I want Nancy Pelosi, who has canceled the State of the Union, to invite Mexican President Lopez Obrador to come to Washington, D.C. and give a speech about the wall and remind President Trump that Mexico ain't paying for a darn thing.
The First Lady of the United States was allowed to use a military plane to fly for a vacay. Right. The person under investigation under a counterintelligence probe for potentially acting in the interest of a foreign power gets to decide whether the Speaker of the House can use a military plane
Right.
to go to a war zone.
Right, and by the way, when he did that to Nancy Pelosi and other congressional members, not only was it petty, at first when we looked at it, it was petty, but it was dangerous.
Yes.
It was a danger to their national security and others. He put other people's lives in danger. Surprising, shocking.
It's a curious time we live in. Karine Jean-Pierre, Jason Johnson, Fernand Amandi, thank you, friends. Appreciate it. And coming